Now we shall begin with chapter number 2, that is Introduction to the Depository System. The Depositories Act was passed in 1996 and it provided for multi-depository system. In fact, India is the only country where we have two depositories. The National Securities Depository Limited, that is NSDL, was the first depository to start in India, and Central Depository Services India Limited, CDSL, was formed in 1999 and is the second depository of India. Under the Depositories Act, all the securities are fungible. That is, securities of the same class are identical and are interchangeable. Also, securities that are bought by investors, these investors are called beneficial owners. Now, the reason why they are called beneficial owners is even though the securities are owned by the depository and shown in the depository books, all the benefits accruing out of all those securities, the benefit goes to the investors and hence they are known as beneficial owners. These securities are also easily transferable, and not like in the physical era, where physical era the transfer of securities used to take place by endorsement. What is endorsement? When anyone bought or sold physical shares, their name used to appear on the shares, and if that person sold the shares to somebody else, the second person's name used to appear at the back of the share certificate. That was known as endorsement. Now, commencement of depository system. The depository first of all requires to obtain a registration certificate from SEBI, but it can only commence its operations after obtaining a certificate of commencement of business. Not only that, once a depository gets the commencement certificate, it has to start its operations within 1 year. That is a law. Also, sponsor of the depository should hold at least 51% of the equity capital. In order to become a depository, the entity has to have a net worth of rupees 100 crores. Now, what are the advantages of the depository? Why was the Depositories Act introduced? First of all, it ensures free and instant transferability of shares. Shares are easily transferable because they are in the electronic form. Secondly, the tradable lot today is reduced to 1. Today you can buy and sell even one security of any company and you can become a shareholder. When shares were bought and sold in the physical era, shares had to be bought in market lots of 50 or 100, which used to create a lot of hassle. Also, problems due to bad deliveries are avoided today. Government exempts any payment of stamp duty on securities in the dematerialized form. When shares were bought and sold in the physical form, stamp duty had to be paid. There is no question of theft, forgery or mutilation of the securities because securities are in the electronic form, nothing is in the physical form. So there is no question of damage to the physical securities. Now, what is the legal framework that governs the depository system? As we earlier mentioned, the Depositories Act 1996 lays down the law under which depositories were introduced in India. Secondly, SEBI Depositories and Participants Regulation 1996 governs the depositories. It also has a norm that records and documents have to be maintained for a minimum of 5 years. Thirdly, there are bylaws that are framed by the depository and sent to SEBI for approval. Once SEBI approves these bylaws, they become active. Also, operating instructions framed by the depository are instructions as to how to carry on day-to-day operations of the depository are framed by the depository. And the PMLA Act 2002, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, was formed, and according to this act, all the records and documents are supposed to be maintained by intermediaries for at least 10 years. So what you have to remember is SEBI requirement is to maintain the documents for 5 years. However, PMLA supersedes this and you have to maintain the documents for at least 10 years. Now, what would be the functions of the depositories? The first function would obviously be demat account opening. So whenever any demat account has to be opened, it has to be opened with a depository. Also, any modification that has to be done in the account has to be done through the depository, and accounts have to be closed also through the depository. Second is dematerialization, that is, shares are held in the electronic form today in the depository. Also, account transfers in case of joint demat account holders will happen through the depository. So transfers and registration of securities is done through the depository system. Also, any corporate actions like bonus, dividends are done through the depository system. Whenever a company has to give dividend, all it has to do today is inform the depositories. The depositories will then provide them a list of shareholders, and hence dividend is easily given to all these shareholders. Pledge and hypothecation. Pledge is nothing but availing loans and offering securities as collateral. This can be availed through the depository system. The depository system also has linkages with the clearing system of the stock exchanges. That is, whenever settlement of securities take place, they take place through the depository. Here we end chapter number 2. Does anybody have any questions?
So,
Yes.
what is the minimum net worth required to register as depository in India?
To register as a depository, the net worth criteria required is rupees 100 crores.
Thank you.
Any other questions related to this chapter?
Yes, one question here. In case of physical securities, what serves an evidence of change of ownership?
The evidence of change in ownership in case of physical shares would be endorsement. That is, the name would appear on the physical share certificate itself.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.